You are listening to Radio Maria Canada. We now present the Health Hub, hosted by Kathy Biasi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Health Hub. I'm Kathy Biasi, your host, and along with our producer, Alex Diaz, we want to welcome you to our show this morning. Good morning, Alex.
Good morning, Kathy. How are you keeping?
Very well. How are you?
Not too bad. I'm pretty good. Pretty much feel rested this week, so it's been productive so far.
Excellent. So, as I mentioned to you off air, as I just realized, today marks the recording of our 200th show. So, congratulations, my friend.
Likewise, it is, and I think it means so much more now, just because of the way we've had to go about producing these programs. I know it's such a challenge to begin with, but your dedication, along with the commitments and such from our guests to maintain, the schedule, and it's such a collective effort all around.
It is, and we have been blessed with wonderful guests who have been adaptable through all this. And of course, I couldn't do any of it without you. So it's been a very fun ride, and here's to the next 100 shows. So today's show is being taped. No opportunity for calling in, unfortunately, but please do follow us on our social sites. We are on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and we are at the Health Hub RMC on all three locations. And do feel free to email us at thh@radiomaria.ca. And please do subscribe to our podcast so that you don't miss any of these fantastic guests that we have had or are lining up to put on the show for you. And you can follow us on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, all your favorite podcast platforms. You can also find our podcasts on the Radio Maria Canada website, which is radiomaria.ca, and on my website, which is kathybiasi.com. We have a very interesting show today. We're talking about back pain. And there's an epidemic of back pain. And of course, we are sitting far more, I think everybody realizes we're sitting far more than we should. But so many interesting pieces that you are going to learn from Dr. Osler about, it's not just sitting, it's not having the wrong chair, and it's not remedied by standing up. It's a fascinating conversation. My eyes were wide open for some of the things that I never really thought about or connected to back pain. So it's a great show, and one I think that all of you should listen to, because it will surprise you what he says. So our guest today is Dr. Turner Osler, and he is a retired academic trauma surgeon turned research epidemiologist. He is the CEO and founder of QOR 360, a company specializing in active seating products for homes, offices, and schools, designed to help alleviate problems caused by sitting. Dr. Osler and his team are passionate to help educate a new generation on active sitting and support an aging population with back pain. Dr. Osler has published over 300 peer-reviewed medical papers and book chapters. As a physician who suffered from a tyranny of conventional chairs for most of his life, Dr. Osler's quest for a healthier way to sit led him to develop the Redrocker, a new geometric solid, the Eccentric Bicylinder. This shape is central to QOR 360's ergonomic, healthy, and active seating products. Active seating is I've never really actually heard of the word, but once we started talking, I remember a couple of people, some reception areas where the receptionist was sitting on a ball, and that is really what the root of active seating is. But to find out why it's so important. It goes far beyond just back pain. It's quite amazing. Some of the learning points that we will be covering are why standing is not the opposite of sitting. You can't alleviate the damage done by sitting, prolonged sitting by standing, and why back pain is only a symptom of possibly other more serious health conditions, and why active seating is so important for back health. So please do stay tuned with us. It's a great, great informative show, and we'll be back in a few minutes to talk to Dr. Osler.
Another heartbreak day. Feels like you're miles away. Don't even need no shade when your sun don't shine. Too many passing dreams roll by like limousines. It's hard to keep believing when they pass you by and by. I know your heart been broke again. I know your prayers ain't been answered yet. I know you're feeling like you got nothing left. Well, lift your head. It ain't over yet, it ain't over yet. So keep walking, soldier, keep moving on. Keep walking until the morning comes. Keep walking, soldier, keep moving on and lift your head. It ain't over yet, it ain't over yet. Echoing inside your head are the words that your sweet mama said. Shoot for the moon, my dear. So you took game out of this atmosphere between high stakes and pump fakes. You're feeling like you can't vibrate. I can hold your hand, but I can't turn your eyes to freedom. I know your heart been broke again. I know your prayers ain't been answered yet. I know you're feeling like you got nothing left. Well, lift your head. It ain't over yet, it ain't over yet. So keep walking, soldier, keep moving on. Keep walking until the morning comes. Keep walking, soldier, keep moving on and lift your head. It ain't over yet, it ain't over yet. Hold on, Lord ain't finished yet. Hold on, he'll get you through this. Hold on, these are the promises I never will forget. I never will forget. So hold on, the Lord ain't finished yet. Hold on, he'll get you through this. Hold on, these are the promises I never will forget. I never will forget. I know your heart been broke again. I know your prayers ain't been answered yet. But it ain't over yet. It ain't over yet. So get up and move. Keep walking, soldier, keep moving on. Keep walking until the morning. Together move. Keep walking, soldier, keep moving on and lift your head. It ain't over yet. It ain't over yet. Lift up your head now. Keep walking, soldier, keep moving. Lift up your head now. Keep walking until the morning. Keep believing. Keep walking, soldier, keep moving on and lift your head. It ain't over yet. It ain't over yet.
You are listening to Radio Maria Canada. We now continue with the program, The Health Hub, hosted by Kathy Biasi.
Welcome back, everybody. As mentioned, our show is being taped today, so no opportunity for calling in, but please do follow us on our social sites. We are on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and we are at the Health Hub RMC on all three locations. Dr. Osler, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Kathy, thank you for having me.
As I mentioned to you off air, you are my 200th recorded show, so it's already set the stage to be a great one. So from trauma surgeon to chair designer, how did that evolution happen?
Yeah, no, really, it's not at all what I foresaw. So I was your basic mild-mannered trauma surgeon, taking care of car wrecks and gunshot wounds in the middle of the night sort of things. And
just
then,
your basic average man.
Well, it's the hard thing about surgery is getting to do it. But trauma surgery is like just so easy because you just are at the hospital and cases keep showing up, people who really need an operation. And there's none of this talking people into an operation. You have a gunshot wound to the abdomen. My name is Dr. Osler. I'm taking you to the OR. Any questions? Kind of a quick thing. So, I got to do a lot of surgery and big surgery and surgery that really mattered. It's a wild ride, but you have to live at the hospital. And I did that for 25 years, actually. And then I got a grant from the NIH and a master's in biostatistics, and I started studying outcomes for trauma surgery and trauma surgeons and trauma centers, trying to figure out which were doing better and which were doing less well, and if the laggards could learn from the elites and try and make the trauma system in the United States better. And so suddenly I was like, writing computer code and doing statistical modeling. And so I was sitting most of the day, which was not at all what the life of a trauma surgeon was, which was basically always, running from the OR to the ER to the clinic to the ICU and back to the OR. But when I sat down, I suddenly started having back pain. And I thought, well, how hard can this be? I've been to medical school. I know anatomy upside down. But it turns out we don't understand back pain very well. And so it took a while. And finally, I figured out that the real source of our misery was that we were all sitting a lot, which is not something that humans are designed to do. And worse than that, we were sitting in chairs that were really not designed to be sat in. They were designed to be looked at, basically. And the design hadn't changed in almost 100 years. And they were working out terribly for us. It turns out that 80% of Americans have back pain bad enough to send them to a physician at some point in their lives. So we've done very badly with back pain. And as I started looking, I thought, this is a problem that really needs a solution. And I couldn't find that anybody had really made a serious run at it. So I thought, well, okay, fine, I'll do it. How hard can it be? That was a stupid thing to say because it turns out it's very hard to invent a new way for people to sit. And we figured that out, and then we figured out a way to manufacture such things. Small group of really committed people here in Burlington, Vermont. I got no business trying to invent or design anything because, I'm a trauma surgeon for crying out loud. I didn't get out much for 25 or 30 years. But I was lucky enough to meet some guys with real design chops at the makerspace here in Burlington, Vermont called The Generator. And they could see that I had a good idea and that I was more or less hopeless. And so they said, "Oh, doctor, let us help you." And I said, No, you don't get it. We're in this to make these things so cheap everybody can have them. And they said, "Us too." And so, so our chair project was born trying to change the way people sit. It's been a very interesting ride for the last 4 or 5 years. And, we're finally getting traction and having some success. So and I get to hang out with young people who are smart and driven. And it's been a lot of fun.
Excellent. I guess there are two questions that just jump into my mind. I sit at home at a chair that's supposed to be ergonomically fit for me, and the lumbar and the shoulders back and my arms sat out, and I thought I was doing a good job. My husband spent the summer back and forth to a chiropractor physiotherapist because he hurt his back. What are we doing wrong? Are the chairs not designed for the curve and function of our spine? I mean, they feel comfortable.
So it's personal for you all, and really it's personal for 80% of America. And the deal is really quite simple. Humans are designed to be hunter-gatherers. We're supposed to be out there chasing rabbits and running from jackals. And when people sit down for 8 or 9 or 10 hours a day on average in the United States, how is that even possible? Breakfast, lunch, dinner, the car going to work, PC at work, PC at home, watching television. It's bedtime. So people spend an immense amount of time sitting, and we're not designed for that. We're supposed to be, either chasing rabbits or lying down. Or if you study hunter-gatherers like the Hadza of Tanzania, as some really forward-thinking people have done, they don't sit, they don't even have chairs. They squat, which is a rather different position. We Westerners sit in these chairs that encourage us just to slump. And as we slump, two terrible things are happening. One is our core musculature is getting zero use, and so it's atrophying, it's melting away. As Hippocrates observed, that which is used develops, and that which is not used wastes away. We've known that for a long time. And in the OR, if you open up somebody's belly to do something, you see just this filmy muscle that's supposed to be like the internal oblique or the external oblique. It's just melted away because people aren't using it because they're just sitting like rice pudding in front of a computer with no muscular activity at all. Perhaps worse, the posture that you're designed for is with your lumbar lordosis, the inward curve of your low back, your head balanced over the top of your spine, elegant standing posture. When people slouch in a chair, all that evaporates, and they're just a lump of really inert muscle. And it turns out that you have an internal architecture. You have internal ergonomics. Your bony structure organizes the rest of you perfectly when you stand up. But as soon as you sit down in a chair, all that evaporates. And the chair designers, and this is back in the 50s, said, wow, look at this. This is terrible. Let's give them a backrest and kind of prop them up. That doesn't look so great. Let's give them an armrest. Maybe that'll help. Or how about a head? Let's give them a footrest. Oh, boy, look at that. Now it's really erect. Okay, fine. Let's mash a lumbar support into their lumbar spine and see if we can't get something that looks a little more normal. Well, all of this is just making things worse, right? Because you're designed to be moving moment to moment with kind of elegantly balancing your bones one on top of another using spinal reflexes that you developed over years as a child as you were learning to crawl, toddle, and then walk. You have all the reflexes to balance elegantly when standing. But when you put people in a chair, it all goes away. They just slump. And what results is muscular atrophy and really sitting in a profoundly abnormal bony conformation, which you can get away with for years. But finally, even the human spine, even though it is a brilliant design, cannot take it anymore. And people show up with, really often debilitating back pain. And then the terrible spiral begins that somebody gives them narcotics for pain, and maybe they fall into the black hole of addiction. And now what was really just a problem has become a catastrophe, maybe leading to drug addiction or suicide or worse. So, the back pain problem in America is $100 billion problem. It's right up there with cancer and heart disease for the cost to the American economy. And it all stems from these very badly designed chairs that we have that people slump in all day long.
So two things pop into my mind. Number one, are our chairs too comfy and we don't want to get out of them? And two, is this just a Western world phenomena?
No, great question. As I was trying to figure out all this stuff, I started going to academic ergonomics conferences where ergonomists read their research papers to each other and have debates and so on and so forth. And it was an eye-opener for me because I have a master's in biostatistics and I do research design and I review articles for surgical journals. I know this math stuff pretty well. And the ergonomics literature is just a catastrophe. They don't really use modern statistical methods. That was one problem. But I was showing our chair to some people when I was at this conference, and a guy walks by who's like really good looking and he's got a little stubble and a scarf around his neck. He's got rupees kind of swept along behind him. And it turns out that he's a god in the world of office furniture design. So he sees the chair that I'm pitching, and so he sits down in it, and he's like completely taken aback because he's never seen anything that moves under him while he's sitting on it. That's not what office chair designers do. And he was just puzzled. And then his wife came by, and she sat down, and she said, "Oh, Francisco, this is terrific. And so, we had a very spirited debate because, he's in the world of chair design. He was on the team that developed the Herman Miller Aeron chair. In 1994, over 8 million of them sold. He's like a god in the world of chair design. Not like some nobody emeritus professor from the University of Vermont with an egghead idea. And I'm talking about anthropology and physiology and muscle dynamics and electrophysiology and so we had an interesting conversation because he comes from a different world of chair design, the eye pop and that kind of thing. So anyway, we parted, and when I got back to Vermont, I got an email from the guy, and he said, "I feel terrible. I spent my life trying to make sure it's so comfortable no one would want to get up. And now you tell me that sitting all day is a catastrophe for their posture, back pain, and biochemistry. But what do you want me to do? We've spent decades convincing people they can't sit without lumbar support. And now you want me to tell them that they don't need lumbar support?" So it was a very interesting conversation because these guys have a legacy problem. They've sold an idea that turns out not to be right. And it's going to be very, very hard to change. We want to change the idea of what a chair is. And that's not going to be easy because everybody thinks they know what a chair is. It's got a backrest, a headrest, armrest, footrest, lumbar support. That's just not true. But it's going to be very hard to get that message out.
So to the second part of the question, is this just a North American issue or is this pervasive in all the Western and Eastern worlds?
It's pervasive in the Western world. And now that people in, South Korea and Japan, Taiwan, and all these places that used to sit in more traditional ways have come to adopt our Western sitting habits, they're developing the same back pain issues that we have in the Western world. So it's a catastrophe that just continues to grow. Our chairs let people move while they're sitting, and so they're balanced on their ischial tuberosities, their sitting bones, which turns out to be kind of the balance, kind of a kickstand for the human body. And if you're balanced on your ischial tuberosities, basically your spinal mechanics and your spinal reflexes work the same way as though you were walking. So our chairs kind of let people walk without the bother of trying to figure out where they're going because they can stay in one place at their desk and still have their spine and their hips involved in something that looks a lot like walking. In fact, this is off point, but you can find a piece of video on YouTube very easily of a guy walking who has no legs. He was born congenitally with no femurs, and so he just doesn't have any legs. And so what he does is he just strides along quite comfortably on his ischial tuberosities, on his sitting bones. His strides are quite short, just a few inches, but he gets around fine. And by watching this piece of video, it suddenly becomes clear that walking has nothing to do with your legs. Your legs are just an amplification system that lets you take longer steps. But walking is fundamentally something that happens in the pelvis and the spine. Your legs just let you take longer steps. And so by balancing people on their ischial tuberosities and letting them have free range of motion, they can walk effectively with their spinal activity and their pelvic movement, but without actually having to go anywhere. And as a result, a lot of really important things happen. First of all, their posture within minutes becomes almost perfect. And secondly, because they're moving constantly, they're using their muscle mass to burn calories, certainly. But more importantly, your muscles aren't just motor units that move your bones. They're immensely complicated biochemical factories that are generating hormones and enzymes and really regulating your milieu intérieur. So when you just sit slumped for 8 hours with all your muscles gone electrochemically dark, no muscle fibers are firing, your bad cholesterol goes up, your good cholesterol goes down, your insulin goes up, really your whole biochemical picture falls apart because you're designed to be using your muscles more or less constantly because you're a hunter-gatherer. That's what you're supposed to be doing. When you turn off all your muscular activity for 8 or 10 hours a day, your biochemistry goes to hell. And epidemiologists have found in big studies that sitting passively for 8 hours a day may shave as much as 2 years off of people's lifespan on average. Now, that's an immense loss of life.
Yes,
and
it
it's
is.
It's hiding in plain sight because people see an office chair and they don't see it because it's just part of the environment. Mm-hmm. It's like a fish doesn't see water. You expect an office chair to look like this. Your office chair looks like that. We're done here, right? Well, actually, that chair is killing you.
It's a fascinating thing. So many times I find in talking to guests like yourselves that we only scratch this. Again, back pain is, as I try and do in other areas of health, but I keep getting guests on the show like you that make me go, oh, I never even thought of that. Back pain is a symptom of something that's going on that's more than just, tweaks in the muscle. And I think it's so important that people have an understanding. And let's face it now I don't know how it's going where you are, but we are confined to our homes basically. And this epidemic of back pain, I just can't see anything except it going up. So I think it's profoundly important that you get the word out about this. We're going to take a quick break here. And when we come back, we're going to start off with the question. So I'll prepare you now. Is standing the opposite of sitting? So it may surprise you. So we'll be back in a few minutes, everybody.
I'm not about to give up because I heard you say there's gonna be brighter days. There's gonna be brighter days. I won't stop, I'll keep my head up. No, I'm not here to stay. There's gonna be brighter days. There's gonna be brighter days. I just might bend, but I won't break. As long as I can see your face. When life won't play along and right keeps going wrong and I can't seem to find my way. I know where I am found, so I won't let it drag me down. No, I'll keep dancing anyway. I'm gonna move. I'm gonna move. I'm gonna move. I've got to hold it steady, keep my head in the game. Everything is about to change. Everything is about to change. This hurt is getting heavy, but I'm not about to cave. Everything is about to change. There's gonna be brighter days. I just might bend, but I won't break. As long as I can see your face. When life won't play along and right keeps going wrong and I can't seem to find my way. I know where I am found, so I won't let it drag me down. No, I'll keep dancing anyway. I'm gonna move. No matter what may come, gotta move to a different drum. No matter what I bring, gotta move to a different beat. No matter what may come, gotta move to a different drum. No matter what I bring, gotta move to a different beat. I just might bend, but I won't break. As long as I can see your face. When life won't play along and right keeps going wrong and I can't seem to find my way. I know where I am found, so I won't let it drag me down. No, I'll keep dancing anyway. When life won't play along and right keeps going wrong and I can't seem to find my way. I know where I am found, so I won't let it drag me down. No, I'll keep dancing anyway. I'm gonna move. I'm gonna move. I'm gonna move. I'm gonna move. I'm gonna move.
You are listening to The Health Hub. here on Radio Maria Canada. A Catholic voice wherever you are. To contact us and be a part of the show, email thh@radiomaria.ca. We now continue with the program. Here once again is your host, Kathy Biasi.
Welcome back, everybody. We're talking with Dr. Turner Osler, and we're talking about posture and seating, and we're definitely going to get into what makes his chair different. But a lot of people, myself included, until I started doing some research on you, was under the impression that to alleviate the issue of sitting, I just stand up. And that's actually not the case, is it?
Well, yeah, no. When I make the case that sitting is bad for people, I often get, well, I have a standing desk, so I'm fine. And it turns out that's just not so. The idea that standing is the opposite of sitting just isn't right. Standing may be the linguistic opposite of sitting, but the actual opposite of sitting is moving. And if you look at people at a standing desk, pretty much they're not like standing there doing Tai Chi. They put a hip forward, they lock it in, they lean on something, and they're just all locked out. Standing still turns out to be a catastrophe, just like sitting slumped is a catastrophe. If you, it's a stress posture. If you want, terrorists to give you the code for the bomb, or just make them stand long enough, they'll tell you, because it's very uncomfortable. I've spent many hours standing around on rounds in the ICU and on the wards of the surgery department. And, you can stand for a while, but pretty soon you're standing on one foot and you're standing on the other foot and you've got one foot against the wall and you're leaning against the wall, just trying to get away from the business of standing still because it's quite uncomfortable. You're designed to be moving, not standing still. So standing at a desk really doesn't solve that problem.
Sorry, go ahead.
But worse, there was a great study that came out of Canada, University of Ontario, Smith et al., 2019, where they followed 7,500 people for 10 years, a big study in terms of epidemiologic efforts. And they had half of them standing and half of them sitting at their tasks. And what they found was, in the group that was standing, the rate of heart attacks was twice as high as in the sitting group.
Oh.
Which just flabbergasted everybody because it was not at all the result that was anticipated. And you can just read the discussion section of their paper as they're trying to figure out what the heck is going on. And it's not completely clear how the physiology works, but we know that when you're walking, blood gets back to the heart by having the muscles squeeze the deep veins of the leg. The deep veins of the leg have valves in them, so you squeeze them and it kind of works like a pump, kind of works like the heart. And so when you're walking, your muscular activity in your legs is pumping blood back to your central circulation. When you sit, the blood just pools in your legs and the veins progressively dilate. But it's even worse when you're standing because you have your right atrium now with, 5 feet of pressure head pushing on the rather delicate veins in your legs. And so they get stretched and stretched and stretched until finally the valves that are in the veins of the legs become incompetent. They get stretched until the lips of the valves no longer touch each other. And now you get varicose veins. But as you're standing there, the blood just isn't moving very well. And we know that blood isn't a fluid, it's an organ. So, it's constantly almost clotting and unclotting as, it's just right on the edge all the time. In case you start bleeding, it needs to be ready to start clotting. When the blood pools in your legs for many hours while you're standing, the blood becomes subclinically hypercoagulable. And it's kind of a setup for any rough spots in your coronary arteries going on to become an MI, a heart attack, by cutting off the blood supply with a small clot. So the business of standing still is really kind of worse than you might think. It's bad for your posture. It doesn't really help your back pain situation. And it actually puts you at much higher risk for a myocardial event. So the whole standing desk craze, I think, is just going to go away, and it can't go away soon enough.
Well, again, something new I've learned. So we have blown ergonomical chairs out of the water, and we have now blown stand-up desk chairs out of the water, and business owners are not going to be happy. Your chairs are called active chairs. And I want everyone to have a listen into exactly what active chairs are. And I think we skimmed over the idea of firing of those core muscles. You mentioned it, but I think this needs to be sort of said again. I have a personal relationship with a man who has had back pain, and his physio has said to him, "You have no core muscles." So let's get on that avenue, and people can understand exactly why your chairs are doing what they're doing so well.
Right. So if walking is what you really want, continuous, subtle muscular activity to create a better biochemical environment inside your body for a host of reasons and strengthen the muscles of your body simultaneously. It's kind of getting back to the hunter-gatherer lifestyle without actually having to leave the convenience of your walk-up apartment, merely by letting you move subtly but constantly. And people who get our chairs, we tell them, 20 or 30 minutes the first day and kind of work up to sitting in it all day, because it's more work than it feels like. It just feels kind of like fun. You're sort of balancing and wiggling a little bit. But really, your core muscles are having to rebalance your entire system really millisecond to millisecond to keep you upright. Nobody's ever fallen asleep on one of our chairs because it's kind of tough love. You'll find yourself on the floor. And it's basically impossible to slump or hunch because you have to stay balanced. It's some muscular work, but people make the transition almost always within a week or two, certainly no more than that. And at the end of it, now they're getting exercise merely by sitting down. The hard thing about good habits, I'm going to take the stairs, or I'm going to go running every day. Well, you have to make the everyday decision 365 times a year, which is hard. It's raining but if you just swap out your comfy, slouching, kind of dead at the desk sort of chair for a chair that requires you to stay balanced and active, you only have to make that decision once, and the habit is already there for you.
I remember there was, not to harken back to an issue with my husband, they tried to get these balls to sit on at their office. He said he nearly killed himself. And I did see a few people. I remember going to my dentist office, and the secretary was sitting on one, and she nearly lost it as well. So they're different than a ball, and they're probably a lot more stable. They are. I've seen it. It's kind of like you have one sort of example as a tennis ball sort of on a piece of plywood, and it just kind of moves back and forth. It kind of, what you're aiming to do with the chairs reminds me when I broke my leg, and the biggest issue I had was my foot, and I had to stand on one of those half balancing balls and to get the small muscles of my foot back in order. And the leg pain was gone and all that, but the small muscles in my foot and my arch were aching just from trying to get those small muscles firing. And I imagine that for a lot of people, they're going to feel a little bit of musculature fatigue at
right.
first using the chair.
It's as we tell people, it's more work than you think. Try for half an hour the first day and see how you feel the next day. Because really, it's like that half physio ball for your foot, only for your entire body. Because when you're sitting on one of our active chairs, if you move anything, everything moves. Your feet are on the floor, but if you move your hips, well, your ankles had to move to keep everything connected. So really, all of your joints are moving subtly, constantly. This is important because the cartilage of joints has no blood supply. So the living cells of the cartilage that lines every joint, keeps it slippery and perfect, derive their metabolic needs, glucose and oxygen, from the synovial fluid that's sloshing around in the joint. And that only works if the synovial fluid is sloshing around, which is to say, if the joint is moving. So, but you have to keep a joint moving to keep it healthy. You know that if you put a joint in a cast for very long, very rapidly, the joint becomes stiff and problematic. So the business of keeping joints in motion constantly is another terrific thing. I should say, we're not the only company that has figured out that active sitting is a good idea. There are maybe 3 or 4 other companies, mostly out of Europe, actually. One out of Canada, Core Chair out of Canada, and the Swapper out of Germany, and Spinalis out of Germany as well. But we think our chair is like better because we began with kind of a epidemiologist's mission to make a chair that was drop dead effective and as inexpensive as we could possibly muster. And so, that was our goal, was to bring active sitting to the masses. And imagine our surprise when we won a design award from a design contest, big contest in Europe, because they were impressed that we had solved such a difficult problem, elegantly and inexpensively.
Why do I see this to be a great thing for kids in schools and, sitting at desks? And again, I think of our classrooms now where the kids aren't allowed to move, but, just for kids even who are a little bit more active than the average kid, just,
Right, and are therefore ostracized and blamed, and the downward spiral begins merely because they're normal,
and they have energy.
In any reasonable hunter-gatherer society, the active kid that brings back an extra rabbit is lionized, and they sing about his exploits around the campfire. Whereas in the United States, if a kid is a little squirmy, he gets sent to the principal. It's terrible. So, and I've had parents say, we have like the kneecap exam, like a high-stakes testing for kids in grade school and high school here in Burlington, in Vermont. And I had a mother come up to me and, she was looking at our active chair for kids. And she said, I wish my kid had this when he was taking the kneecaps. I know he would have done better. She knows her kid can't sit still and color in bubbles on a test. But if they just gave him a chair that would let him move, he would have done better. It's just one parent's intuition. But I really respect and trust that kind of, and she knows her kid. So anyway, we set out to kind of get active chairs under kids, but the schools can't afford glitter for their art projects. So how are they going to replace every piece of furniture? So we came up with a design that we give away, with the idea that you can download the file, you can make this thing out of plywood with a CNC router, and just like put every kid on an active chair. We started out using tennis balls as the mechanism to make the chair wiggly. But we put these things in a few classrooms in Burlington, Vermont, and the kids just wore holes in the tennis balls. And I didn't think that was possible. So we've since switched to lacrosse balls. They can't seem to wear those out. And what it proves is kids really move a lot.
It really does.
When you give them a chance.
And, boys are a little bit more active.
Right.
And to get them to be able to, children that may be on autistic spectrum, just to get them able to move without feeling like they're moving and nobody else is, because honestly, the kids would always be moving in general. So I think it's a great idea. And I'm assuming that this drawing, the design you're sending out is, you plug it into a computer and it's just there and you just have to have the equipment. And I think it's brilliant. I really do. There's so many applications for a chair like this. I'm definitely going to get one because, I do sit a lot. There's no question I sit a lot. If people wanted to find out more about you and maybe even if, here in Canada, if some schools are interested in seeing what your product is and, maybe a good shop class could put some of them together.
Well, that was our hope, was that, because CNC routers, the computer numeric control, it's basically a cookie cutter for plywood, so you can just stamp out as many chairs as you want.
Like a tool and die sort of idea?
Right, but it uses plywood, which is like really cheap and really strong. So anyway, to find our project, we have a couple of websites. One for the plywood chairs with the design that we give away, which we call button chairs. The double entendre is intended, but on chairs, uttonchairs.org, because it's just a project where we give stuff away. So buttonchairs.org. And we also have another website for where we make and distribute chairs for adults, which is QOR360.com, like core QOR360.com.
Okay.
we've sold about 4,000 of these things, and people, and we say, if you don't like it, send it back, we'll give your money back. And only about 5% have come back, which I find extremely encouraging because it proves that people are willing to eat kale. Our chairs are a little more work, but they're immensely good for people, and people are willing to take on that challenge and that responsibility for their health, posture, and really just all-around better spinal health.
Well, have you ever had back pain? I've had one bout of it, and it's debilitating.
No, I had back pain. I was coming back from a cross-country flight with a 9-month-old on my lap, trapped in a chair in an airplane for 7 or 8 hours. And when I got up, my back hurt so much I could not walk. I had to crawl off of the airplane. And security showed up with guns. I was acting so weird that, a nice associate professor at the university couldn't be tried. It can be a problem. I've had people sobbing over the phone, begging for us to send them a chair overnight because, it can be really bad.
It can be.
But the thing is, if you run somebody through a CT scanner, there's nothing to see. Mm-hmm. It's just as we say, functional.
Well, yeah, and then not to carry this on too long, but the pain can go to different areas where you wouldn't even assume that it's back pain. You can have a shoulder pain that stems from a back pain, and it makes it very difficult for people to figure out what needs to be treated. Also neck pain, right? When people are sitting slumped and their heads are forward, suddenly their muscles in the back of their neck have to hold up this 13-pound bowling ball that's trying to fall into their lap. That's not normal. Your head is supposed to be balanced on top of the first cervical vertebra, the atlas, so that it's essentially weightless. But when people slump, suddenly they're using all of their neck muscles in a way they're not intended. And you may get away with it for a week or a month or a decade, but it catches up with people. And we find that when we put people on an active chair, not only does their spine figure out where it belongs, their head figures out where it belongs, and everything gets better. Fascinating. I certainly learned quite a lot. I want to thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, my wife thanks you for letting me get this out of my system, because maybe at dinner tonight we can talk about something else for a change.
Oh, no, you just have to talk about how good the interview was. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate you taking the time. And everybody, we will talk to you next week on The Health Hub.
You have been listening to The Health Hub, hosted by